everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser Podcast. I am your host, as always, Timuchin here in cold ass Chicago, and with me we have the usual trio. And man, we have a lot to talk about. But let's start going around first. Gally is with us as always. Gally, what's happening, man?
Not too much. Not nearly as freezing as it is in Chicago, but it is damn cold. That storm that killed everyone in the Midwest, it saved me from having to go out to Western New York for Christmas. But Kelly headed out of town today. So somewhere here with me tonight is Smokey, who might make his podcast debut because he's just running free in the house. So we'll see how long he allows me not to pay attention to him tonight.
That is dangerous. Yeah, we can make an appearance. We've had worse appearances. So Alan is with us as always. Hello, Alan, and of course the guy who makes me look like an optimist day in and day out. Bickler is with us. Bickler, what's happening, man? You're smiling. So
what's up, dog?
I don't know. A little happier.
Oh, dude, I was super positive today after the first half.
After the first half, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty painful, but it works. Makes me look like an optimist. But I know what will make you guys look like a pessimist is our trivia section. And I'm glad as hell that BJ is here, because when he sent me the question, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to give a press conference off this, especially with Bickler and stuff, asking a bazillion questions. So, but he said
I don't like that start. Don't like that. That's not a good start to this.
That is not a good start to this. But that's why we have BJ presented. BJ, what's happening?
That's why I'm here. Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you all had a good holidays.
As good as it can be. It was a fun afternoon. Mine was good, but we'll see how these guys did. We'll talk about it as we go. Man, your backboard is getting more and more decorated over here, making Gally look worse by the day.
I'm just having lots of fun with that. Yep.
Go ahead, shoot away. What do you have?
All right. We'll try to make this quick. I know you got a lot you want to talk about today, but what's interesting is over the last couple of seasons, a lot of fans and even pundits and everything, I keep hearing talking about how Liverpool doesn't do that great after the restart. Between the restart through the end of January, to which I give them my typical reply of, that's just like your opinion. But let's look at it honestly and think about it. So here we go. Looking at league matches between Boxing Day and the end of January, and how many seasons has Liverpool lost more than they've won? Not counting draws, not counting FA Cup, Moose Cup, Champions League, just the league matches. And how many seasons out of 30 have they lost more than they've won?
Bickler, shoot us a number. How many seasons?
I'll go 7.
Yeah, you stole my number.
Mitush has 4.
Yeah, I'll split them because I was gonna go somewhere right around there. I'll say 5.
See, I think this is gonna be very telling over here. Go ahead, BJ. Shoot the answer.
1. The very first season, 92-93, record of 1-1-2. We have only dropped more than half the points in 8 seasons. 24 seasons, we got 50% or more of the points. And with the win today, Klopp is 26-9-8 from Boxing Day through the end of January.
That is like an possible
points.
Yeah,
we still suck in January.
I should have just randomly guessed.
But remember, that was league matches. We left out the Carabao Cup. We left out Champions League. We left out all the other distractions. But we do pretty good in the league.
It is usually the FA Cup where we lay a big fat egg early in January.
Yep.
Each year.
There we go. So,
thanks a lot, BJ. Appreciate it, man.
Yep. Y'all take care.
Easy. Have a good one. Yeah, I think more than anything else, it kind of like shows the importance of, even how draws can hurt you. Because I think we have that impression because that's a lot of draws in there. And those hurt just as many as losses ever since, obviously we have like the 3 points for win system. But that was kind of like a odd one. I kind of guessed, like, my guess was like 3 to 4. I did not think 1. Alan says 9. Jeez, got to be more optimistic than that. What are you, Bickler? But let's start with the good news. So I think this is as official as it can possibly get until like he's actually playing and the contract is signed and stuff like that. But this came out of nowhere. We were probably going to talk mostly about the game, but obviously with this one, since it's the hottest news, within like 3-4 hours, interest, signs, here we go, tweets and everything like that. Bickler, what is your reaction to Liverpool getting Cody Gakpo?
Well, my first initial gut reaction, I think, is pretty much what a lot of people's are. Is like, damn it, it's not a midfielder, But I mean, it makes sense. I know this is somebody that we've talked about in the past, that we've looked at in the past. Young, promising player. We like to collect left wingers, so we got another left winger. I do think he has some position versatility. Interesting signing in general. Just I think his first 2 big attributes that stand out are his pace, and his ability on the ball, which and then his 2 criticisms are his first touch and his decision making. So who does that sound like to you? It sounds exactly like Nunes. So I think there's going to be some interesting stuff here. I like the kid. I think it's very interesting. His game is almost the inverse of Firmino's, whereas Firmino was traditionally, he had some wing play, but he was essentially a striker who gave you those midfield attributes. He's essentially been playing as a midfielder with striker attributes. For a long time, he was traditionally thought that he was going to be a striker, but then they found out like just his ability on the ball and his ability to create for others kind of put him in these wide spaces. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we do use him centrally, whether he stays out wide. I think everybody's got their opinion on that. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, Kazi says feels like the signing that shows that he sees Jota in the 9. And I think not only that, Gally, maybe it says a little bit about how hopeful we are in terms of like when and how Diaz will return. What do you make of like the move by itself? Or is it just like we wanted to grab him? I mean, really price-wise and everything like that. It's a lot lower than I thought it would be. When we were talking about it, I think you mentioned actually like his price would not even be higher and stuff like that during the World Cup when we were talking. So I was actually kind of shocked with the price tag. It looks like a steal at that price.
I mean, United basically announced that they signed him yesterday for $55 million, and they were doing backflips about it and all excited and high-fiving each other. And Erik ten Hag was all excited and smug during his presser. Klopp was really funny in the press conference yesterday. He alluded to how well the Diaz signing worked and like kind of jumping a competitor and being pushed into the market. And, it worked so well. Maybe why don't we do it again? And then, Virgil's sitting there in his press conference pre-match talking about the excitement of new faces coming into the club. It almost felt like they knew this was happening. Obviously, they have some information. And it was a little bit of a needle, I think. When we were on here last week, we all said we thought we would have a win in the league. I don't think we thought we would have a new signing by the time we came back on tonight. I'm excited about it because I do think we needed a 6th attacker. I really want Bobby to re-sign that deal, but until he does, he's only got 3 months left at the club, and he'll be out of contract. So $37 million, it's in the perfect profile for signing players. Young, upside, there's sell-on availability, and basically to Alan's point, this is a much greater chance I will never have to see Ox start on the left again, and that makes this an amazing signing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We're going to talk about the game now, and I was going to ask you guys about actually before this news came out in terms of, like Ox and versus Carvalho and stuff like that in that spot. Obviously, this kind of shows that we were not happy overall with what we had to do there. So, Bickler, I mean, I think the short term where we see him is a lot easier, right? Because of the injuries to Jota and Diaz and stuff like that. How do you see it? I guess, like, I'll still ask the short term, but more importantly, long term, how do you see this shaping up, him coming in? Because then, I mean, with the injury bug that we always get, it's never safe, but it looks like down the road, obviously, it's kind of like, too many good quality people up top. You can never have too many, I guess, but I don't know if these guys will be happy to stay behind.
Well, I don't know. Like Pep Linder's comments lead me to believe that he likes him almost as either an attacking mid or a false nine centrally. So, I mean, he didn't say that. He said he's the missing link in what we've been missing in our link-up play between the midfield and the front three. And I read that as who's been missing? Bobby Firmino. So if you're looking at a player that has that makes me wonder, maybe long-term he sees rolling him into a 9. But that's what I thought with Carvalho, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
That's what I thought we'd see with Carvalho. So I don't really know. I'll also tell you, I don't know that Liverpool knows. I think that they saw an opportunity for a really great player that's obviously a system fit, that has had experience playing in all 3 spots across the top. And I think they figured if we're having injury issues, we at least got a dude that at the very best can fill in at left wing, at the very worst provides depth for Mo, because he can play right if he needs to. And then the rest is all kind of a bonus. And if he fits in long-term, essentially great. If not, it's almost like the Manchester City thing where they let the players play it out. And then the chips kind of fall where they may into the system. So I don't know what they know.
And I think the price tag kind of helps that point a bit too, Gally. I mean, if you sign this guy for 60, 70, 80 million, it almost you got to start him or something like that. Whereas this price tag almost makes it easier to kind of work him in and kind of rotate him down the road, as like Kazi was saying earlier, we don't know if Diaz is going to be able to come back, and when he comes back, he's not going to be like the old Diaz right away and stuff like that. This buys him time. But when Jota comes back, Bobby's available and stuff like that, I think the price tag kind of enables us to pick and choose as opposed to know for a fact that he's going to have to start.
Yeah, and I think depending on what else we do in the window with midfield reinforcements, I'm sure we'll quickly touch on that, or how this might impact that. I think eventually we're going to see them starting 4 of these 6 players when they're all fit. And to Kazi's point, I think that this does allow you to not really have to push not really have to push Diaz when he becomes healthy come March, April, whenever that is. And I think you just let him ease his way back, come off the bench, give you meaningful minutes, build up fitness, and then spend the summer getting right and coming back fully kind of operational come next August. So for me, we're starting 4 out of the 5 at that point. And I think the other thing it does do, to Paul's point, I think it allows Carvalho and Elliott maybe to be the depth in the midfield. If you're only starting 2 of them in a lot of the matches, now you're not asking as much of Thiago. You're not asking as much as Fabinho and Henderson. If you sign one more quality, let's be honest, we replace Keita as the 4th person on that depth chart. I feel better about our midfield if Elliott and Carvalho and even Jones are 5, 6, 7 on the depth chart, with Milner coming in to close out matches. So maybe you only need the Amrabat. I can't pronounce the guy's name. I'm just going to butcher it till he's a Liverpool player.
Amrabat?
Yeah, Amrabat. Amrabat. However, well done, Timuchin. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I still mispronounce Turkey, and it's Turkey, and you've corrected me 100 times.
It's not Turkey, man. That's the German for it.
Well,
for God's sake, it's Turkey. Mind you, I still say Turkey, but I definitely don't say Turkey because that's the German for it.
That's how I'm going to say it from here on out.
Shut up, but you guys freaking glow for Christmas.
It really is. That to me is the biggest impact here is that I think that it allows you, with a little bit more depth in midfield, to utilize these pieces and push the real attackers forward and not waste Carvalho's minutes, Elliott's minutes playing in positions that they're not physically capable of. And I just think that's the most important piece of the signing.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to read in between the lines, Bickler, like of the signing, like what is like the biggest takeaway? Is it like the basically like the future injury or when Diaz is gonna come back, or the fact that like obviously Carvalho or these guys were not able to like basically fill those shoes and maybe they are not ready yet to be able to kind of like throw into that role? Because this something like this buys time for a guy like Carvalho too, instead of playing in
Do
the
you want to
wrong
know
position.
what my honest takeaway is from this being the signing? My honest takeaway is the fact that we went out and got a position that we haven't thought was a need for a long time, but a need that came through injury, and it's not a midfielder, and it's not Bellingham, and it's not any of that. The thing that jumps out to me is that means that there's either been a majority or a full ownership sale. Like,
Yeah.
that's my takeaway. Because, like, to me, it seems like a decent chunk of money that isn't Bellingham money when we're apparently over here scraping pennies together for that, you know? So my first reaction was, we got money somewhere from somebody somehow in some deal, and it's coming down the pipe.
So, I mean, so what does that say? You were talking about it earlier, Gally. Does that mean if we're like, just like, we're like, what do you want? 37 here. And does that mean there's more other money to kind of like throw around to midfield now in January? Or does that mean, we kind of like grabbed this opportunity and stole the guy, kind of like how we did with Diaz, from going to another team, and we're probably not going to splash the money for midfield where we really need it? I mean, that was my initial reaction too. I mean, like when I first heard the news, I was like, that's freaking awesome, because I'm really big on the kid. But this, like right afterwards, the second follow-up thought was like, yeah, but what about midfield? That's where we really needed somebody.
I always felt that there was anywhere from 40 to 75 million for the right player or two this January, and I don't know that changes. We did just spend 37 of it on a player that some would call a fringe need. So I'm with Paul. I do think that there will be an announcement in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I lean to believe it's a full takeover. There was a lot of smoke around them wanting to buy the Commanders, the Washington football team. There's even more smoke about them and LeBron teaming up to buy the expansion team that they're going to announce at the end of the year in Vegas for the NBA. I think there's real merit there, and I think that would require getting $2-3 billion of profit, which is what they'll walk away with here. So I think in January we're going to hear about a full takeover. I don't know where or who, but I think that's just what my gut says. And then I do believe we'll make another big signing probably in the summer, but I think in January it'll be that type of $30 to $40 million midfielder that hopefully can give us depth at backing up Fabinho and at least Thiago, if not Fabinho and Henderson. I think that person has to be versatile, play a couple roles in a midfield.
How about you, Bickler? Like, what do you think? Does this like kind of like leave the door open for like spending a bit more on a midfielder, or does that kind of like use up the funds that we may normally would use?
I can't believe that I just refuse to believe that's our only signing. I think we probably got something solid in the works already. I think that we had probably lined up the second move before we even made the first move. So I think the thing that makes sense to me is the Moroccan dude. I think that's
okay.
Yeah.
See, you're smarter than me.
I'll press every time you guys try to say his name.
You, Ox, there's all sorts of opportunities today for everybody. But yeah, I mean, just from an age, wage, and price standpoint, and obviously fit in terms of what he does and what he brings to the table, I think that's almost a no-brainer. Like, it would almost be silly for us not to do that one. So I think that one, and then I think we're going to see some. I think we're going to see some big stuff in the summer, I would think. I do believe the Bellingham. There's just too much smoke there. I believe that is in a place where it's achievable for us. And I didn't believe that probably 2 or 3 months ago. I didn't believe that prior to the World Cup.
Yeah, I believe
What do you guys think about the whole Enzo thing? I mean, is it just me that I feel I'm like really worried about, because the rumor was that we were the club that offered 100 to Benfica, who turned it down. I just feel like, is it just me that it's way too much? If Bellingham is like 120, 150, whatever it's going to be, doesn't that sound a lot for Enzo over there, Gally? I mean, because I hate that these World Cup. I'm sure like we were watching him before and monitoring him and everything, but I mean, I did not see as much like Bellingham. I can kind of look at it and say that's worth every freaking penny. I personally don't get that feeling with the Argentinian dude.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of him, and what I have seen is a lot of him rolling around on the pitch and yelling at people and kicking people from behind and like acting like an absolute turd, both while the play is going on and afterwards. So I think I'm having a hard time separating some of his antics throughout the World Cup. But he was 100% deserving of being the young player of the tournament. He was outstanding. He basically bullied his way in to the starting 11 during the group play after the bad loss to Saudi Arabia and never looked back as a 19-year-old kid. So that's pretty big ballsy move in his first major tournament. Most people didn't know this. You know, he was actually a done deal to Wolves, and the deal fell through because of something they saw in his medical. They were supposed to get him for like $8.5 million, and then he ended up at Benfica. And
probably thought he was Portuguese.
Well, that was probably it. They probably realized. Yeah, he showed up and he was like, no, I'm from Argentina.
Get that shit out of here.
There's a big difference when there's an S at the end versus a Z.
He just I think he has a lot of talent, and I'd be interested to see what he would do. I don't know that he's ready physically to play in the Premier League, but he does create with a variety of passes from deep. And he's been known to be basically a holding midfielder who does it more with like an attacking flair. So it would be interesting to see how we would deploy him. I would see him as like a long-term replacement for Thiago. But I don't think he's coming to Liverpool, honestly. And if anything, I could see us just forcing United to go pay 150 million for him right now.
And that's what I was going to say, because Kazi is saying maybe we have signed him. He's referring to Gakpo just to piss off United, which I believe that's how we should sign every player. And then he also said, like, Benfica can't turn down 100 million. I feel like now, like it's go time for United, because United is going to be, obviously, like you were saying, Gally, this was almost like a done deal. And it looks so natural, right? He's Dutch, Netherlands, Ten Hag wanted him. Everything kind of like coming together. They're going to pay the fee and everything like that. So I almost feel like, Benfica can now be like, you guys should take this guy away from Liverpool for like 120 or something like that. And United could fall for that.
Buy now.
Click to buy now and grab it. And what's your take on Enzo, by the way, apart from not being Portuguese, Bickler?
I like him. I mean, he definitely like, there's a lot of shithousery with him though, but like
he's a big kind of player.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think I was? But not being Argentinian, like I think the comparison that comes to mind is honestly Mascherano. Like he reminds me a little bit of Mash in that midfield where he's a little bit smaller, but he's like a little pit bull. He's got a bit of that like bulldog in him. I think he's got the teeth to play in the Prem. I don't know. I think Gally's probably onto something. I don't know if we know how durable he is though. Like, I mean, he can get in there and probably throw it with the best of them in the midfield, but like over the course of an entire season of the Prem, can he handle that kind of abuse physically? I'm not sure. But I do like him as a player. That a great tournament. I think 100 million is crazy for him. Honestly, I think if I'm looking honestly, I think like 65, 70 million, I can see him top out at, but 100 seems too much for me.
Yeah,
I think I'm just paranoid that, like every World Cup produces one or two of these names that, do well and that, get sold for a ton of money. And then actually, the truth comes out. Like, that's why I don't have that concern with Gakpo, because his name was out there and his performance was out there even before the World Cup. And we got to kind of like see him in action over there. And honestly, I mean, I think it's not like the guy that you see. It's not like Bellingham where you watch him and you're like, it's everything we need. But then again, after seeing this lineup over here today and seeing Ox on the wing, and man, even at his best days, I never liked Ox on the wing. Watching it today, it's almost like, maybe it is what we need right now. So let's get to the game, and then we'll like finish up with like some transfer rumors at the end. But Gally, let's start with you. Pretty much a natural lineup for the most part, except obviously that slot that needed to be filled. Are you okay with the Ox thing? Or let me ask you this way, Ox versus Carvalho, was there really a huge difference?
I don't think there was. I'm actually okay with the Ox thing because I'd rather see Carvalho get meaningful minutes coming in and substituting into a position that Klopp sees him in long term, helping the club. Because I still think every time he's on the pitch, he does great things. He scores goals, he creates goals. But then I think that he also looks like he's thinking about where he needs to be at all times. And that's why I think you see Carvalho get yanked off at half and subbed off more than most of the other players when he does get starts. So I was fine with the Ox starting, I guess, based on the players that were available and fit. Everything else I feel like picked itself.
How about you, Gally? I felt like, obviously, I'm a big Ox apologist, everybody knows, but I felt like watching him, at least defensively, he knew where he had to be when we're pressing. And there was at least a few moments that I can recall where his pressure resulted to, like the goalie kicking it out of bounds or defender kicking out of bounds, or us getting possession back. Whereas sometimes Carvalho gets lost and he'll be pressing next to Mo 1 second. You're like, dude, you're supposed to be on the other side.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. Maybe I didn't say right. He always looks like he thinks too much. Like he's still trying to figure out his job here, which is completely understandable. He just arrived in the summer. I think Ox did a nice job tracking back. I just think at this point we're honestly looking for anything we can to like say positives about what Ox does, because it's been so long that I felt like even in our Discord channel today there were some critiques of Ox's overall performance, and I felt like we were going out of our way, like almost describing the work Nunez was doing off the ball without scoring, and like comparing the runs he was making and the space he was creating for people. And I was like, Nunez was actually creating a hurricane everywhere he went on the pitch, like a tornado, just moving around and causing chaos. Ox was just like filling in roles, and in a lot of ways I felt like he was kind of invisible. He didn't get in the way and he didn't make mistakes. But to your point, he definitely tracked back and did his overall job. I genuinely don't believe we're going to see much more of him if we continue to buy more players.
Yeah, especially with that's kind of like I assume that's part of like Gakpo. That's how it made sense instantly after looking at this lineup. Matusha, how does Darwin get a 5.7? I think that's mainly because SofaScore, when they do these scores, it's based more on chances in versus converted and stuff like that. A lot of stats go into it, so they don't like just look at the play, but I think it's like a lot of number based. How about you, Bickler? What did you make of Ox's performance like, and would you pick Ox over Carvalho? Because obviously we're not going to have Gakpo starts next game on Friday, so.
I personally would have picked Carvalho because my thing is I'm at least going to invest the minutes in the dude I know is going to be here next year. And
Fair.
But that being said, I think in retrospect, I think Ox was probably the better move, just because I thought Ox honestly was fairly good when we were out of possession. But That's the problem, is his bright spot was when we were out of possession and he's up top on the left. It's like, you can't have that be your thing, man. I thought, in terms of like holding shape, pressing, I thought all that was good. But it was just, I think Gally said it best. Like there was like a 15-minute span midway through the first half where I was like, I actually looked up how many touches he had because I hadn't seen him get anywhere near the ball in like almost a 12-minute stretch. So, it's in that regard, when you're in possession, you can't be playing with 10. So, I hate that. It's just frustrating to know that we're in the spot where like you're choosing between him and Carvalho right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I think this makes sense. Saida says FSG should at least try and sign either Kudus or Amrabat, as Gally hinted, the fee in the region of 30 to 40. What do you guys make of Kudus, by the way? Obviously he was very active in the World Cup and stuff as well. I'm not as sold, especially for midfield, but Gally, price range wise, I think it fits your mold, but I don't know if it fits this midfield.
I saw him more as an attacking player when I watched him in the World Cup. I know that they say he has played in the midfield and would be open to playing in the midfield. But again, if you had just shocked the world today and dropped that we signed him for 37 million, I would have been just as kind of floored, but I would have been just as excited that we had signed a really smart, attack-minded forward. I just don't see him as a midfielder. So for me, I don't know that the Kudus one is what we need. I'll stick with Paul's approach and say we signed the Moroccan.
Amrabat. Jesus. Okay, we'll do like a session where we practice names for next week's pod.
Listen, we know what this episode's name's called.
Oh, yeah. No question.
So, going back to the game, one thing that, and I know you mentioned in the Discord as well, especially for Trent, but I thought for both sides, I thought this was probably in a long time the best performance we got out of Trent and Robertson at the same time. And obviously that kind of like helps going forward. And you got to give credit to Mo and I guess Ox over there too, in terms of like creating that space for those guys to push up. But really Trent did most of his work from like long balls from his position, whereas Robertson was making the runs. What do you make of those guys today? Bickler.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
it was great. I said it was the best half of like football I've seen Trent play since 2021. I thought he was like fantastic positionally. I thought he was great on the ball. I thought he was great off the ball. I thought he was taking chances where he should have been taking chances, where he's been lacking confidence the last 6 months to take people on. I thought he did just about everything you could possibly do in a half of football. From an effort standpoint and from an output standpoint. So, yeah, I couldn't have been happy with him. And Robbo looked like Robin for the first time in a long time, which was nice.
Are you shocked that he was taken out? Trent?
No, because I think Trent's one of the ones that was hit pretty hard in terms of the illness that went through. So I think he got hit pretty hard for that. And I think they probably saw an opportunity to try to get – I don't know, dude. I did not love those subs at 2-1, though. I can tell you that. I know it ended up working out, but I did not love that.
Yeah, the funny thing is when those subs came in, I was like, this is either going to be hammered tonight or it's going to be like a good move at the end. But it was one or the other.
What would have made you know? What would make you think that, other than the fact that me and Paul both commented within about 30 seconds of like a basically, what the fuck? What are you thinking? Gomez is one thing. You can't bring in this kid. I haven't even started my blinkless rant yet, and the kid scores a goddamn goal. It made me laugh. It made me giggle. And then it made Jamie warm inside because a kid that he had barely ever heard about last year bangs one in right there. And, we're going to build a statue. And it's what makes this club special. The kid played well. It was a 6 minutes of glory. But it was a great touch after Darwin just did what Darwin does and just causes problems.
And I want to get back to Darwin because obviously it's like a huge talking points and like people are on like different ends of the spectrum for some reason. It's one or the others. Doom or gloom, or in some ends like Bickler over here, not on Nunez in general. But so going back to like, why do you think that sub? Is that for defensive stability, Gally, or was it more all about legs? It was going to happen either way, regardless of the game.
I mean, honestly, what do
you think Klopp was thinking?
It almost felt. I have to be honest. Remember last year when he just started Tyler Morton and we all dropped the what the fucks in Discord and we're like, what the hell's going on here? And then Morton went out and didn't play that well. And then later, like a week later, he was like, well, we need some players. It almost felt like we got this lead. Everyone's tired. I only got Phillips, a kid and two goalies on my bench right now. I'm just sending the kid out there. And if it doesn't go well, it's one more way I can look at the media and wryly smile and say, well, we need some players, right? Well, we need some help here. We play with who we have. And he loved it. They got the third. It worked out well. He looked like a genius, but I could have easily been one of Klopp's kind of using in the media missives that he drops if it hadn't worked out. So he had no choice. I mean, who else was he going to put in there? You're not going to put Elliott or Carvalho or one of the kids in there. So I already put Elliott on. So, but there was really no one else to put in.
Is that what you think, Bickler, as well? I mean, it was more like a defensive. I mean, we need some fresh legs, and this is the only guy I got. So maybe it was a message at the same time, like Galley says, and be like, hey, this is all we got. So
yeah, the only thing I can think is that he was concerned about fitting the strap off and that he wanted to just get some legs in. But gee whiz, man. Yeah. And I think that, like, I felt strongly for a minute like he was actively throwing this year. Like, I was like, that's what it felt like.
And so let me get to that. I mean, obviously, I thought it was like a great first half, but we did give a lot of chances. And the second half starts, and you could kind of tell Villa would make that run. And how concerned are you with all the, I guess, chances they got, Gally? Because against a team that can finish better, we could have been in trouble.
Well, I mean, it was a microcosm of the season, except for we actually scored 3 goals. I mean, for me, it was kind of like the similar match, right? We played better cohesively going forward than we have for longer periods at times. But we always gave up chances at the back. I thought Van Dijk and Matip got better as the match went on. And towards the second half, in the middle of the second half, Fabinho really stepped up and looked like Fabinho again for short periods as well and gave them good cover. You know, Allison stood on his head, made a couple great world-class saves, and if he doesn't, it could have been a different story. You know, if Bailey scores that goal in the first half and knots it up at 1 right away after we score, who knows what the, result would have been. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And, Thiago looked really, really poor for me off the ball all match long today. Turned the ball over in tough spots. Henderson didn't look great, but I think it was how bad Thiago looked on the other side. And then, of course, Ox was kind of in and out. Keita didn't look great. Even Elliott was kind of subpar. So there's still a lot to work on for me coming out of this performance, obviously. But there were a lot of positives, that's for sure.
What do you allude that's like giving a lot of chances to Bickler? Is it based more on the midfield? Because I thought the back four did fine, but is it the midfield causing that problem? Or is it the fact that like Ox, as well as he was good off the ball, that not having a threat on that side, for example, obviously changes how you defend overall?
It does. I thought they were slow to so I mean, there's a couple of things. Watkins was playing between like Thiago and Matip, which was causing some issues. But I thought they were slow on the left to close that delivery in like all game long. And that's the diagonal that everybody likes to hit because it plays crossover to Trent's side too. So it's like this double whammy that people have figured out. I saw a lot of things that were a lot better. The thing that I felt like was a killer was in the second half. We started, and I don't know if this just goes back to fatigue, but like we just were losing every second ball. Like we couldn't get it back off them on a 50-50 for like a good 6-minute stretch when they scored, and that you could see that coming. But I thought on the whole, I thought we defended a lot better. I mean, that being said, the bar was incredibly low, but I thought that it was a lot better just from a positional standpoint and like a shape standpoint, especially first half. I think the best opportunities they had came from some miscues from us on mishit headers. And then Thiago's one crazy ball from like our own goal area straight into the middle of the pitch, like in front of the goal was insane. Like that's stuff they teach you when you're 6 not to do. Other than that, I mean, I thought it was a lot. I thought there was a lot of improvement this one coming out of the break defensively for us.
So if it is legs, Gally, is that concerning for a game like we play Friday now? Because this was pretty much, the best lineup we can throw out there. You probably will have some kind of a rotation. Is that concerning that, these legs are not going to get any fresher?
Yeah, I think you have to be a little bit. And I think it's why we saw Trent come off. I think it's probably why we saw the WTF moment when we were bringing on players with numbers in the 60s. To see out a match that we needed to win like nobody's business. But I think it's probably going to mean a Gomez start somewhere along the way, either at center back or at right back. I think it's probably going to mean a Simicast start along the way. And it's going to mean a very, very welcome back Konate, because I think getting Konate back and having that partnership really solidifying things, because I think then you get the bounce out of Matip when he plays, because he'll be extra rested and fit. And I just think we have to really worry about Henderson and Fab. They have to stay healthy until we have reinforcements in. Those two more important than anyone else for me right now. Henderson,
and that's why I think it's concerning, because you listed a lot of potentials, but they're kind of like the back line, which I thought did well. And that's why I think Bickler, what do you do with this midfield? Like, how do you change it now going into Friday, going against a Leicester team that kind of like lost that game early against Newcastle, and like they're prone to make that mistake. I always feel like this is a good Keita game, because Leicester's known to make those mistakes as they try to build from the back, and that's what Keita usually thrives on.
I just feel like Keita has been out of the picture for so long that like this isn't that guy. Like I feel like if he had a run of games going, if he had a run of games going into this one, I'd be okay with that. But he's been out of the picture for so long. He looks like he's learning how to play with an entire new team, because he is. Like that starting 11 has a lot of new pieces. And I think that's the problem. I don't know how much you can really strengthen. Like that's your best. This today was the best midfield. And so if you can turn around and replicate that in 5 days, I don't know what else you do. Maybe move Harvey in and swap sides, Henderson over and rest Thiago, bring Thiago off the bench for Hendo. Like those are those things. But now you're having to choose where you weaken. And like that's not playing from a position of strength. It's the literal opposite. So that's the problem. And we got into this when we had the center back crisis, and we wanted to move midfielders out to center back because they were better players or had more experience. And then by default, we just weakened multiple positions. Yeah. So it's like it starts getting scary when you start doing that. But I that's like the only scenario I can see a change is like Harvey in, swap Hendo, Thiago rest, Fabinho. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, if Bobby is going to be back, I can see, Núñez shifting to the left-hand side, so at least you have some like stability that way, and Bobby in the middle, try to open up that defense, and obviously have that like pressing going on. So let's talk about Núñez for a little bit, because it's either a flop or it's the best thing ever, where I still feel like as much as he creates, Gally, do you worry at all with the finishing overall in some of the chances that, when he's one-on-one, or as long as he gets in those situations, those goals are eventually going to come?
I mean, I'm in the camp that goals like that eventually come when you've proven that you can score goals, which he has done, and albeit a short period at Benfica. I've seen enough in his finishing when he has been in kind of some of the purple patches we've seen in a Liverpool jersey that I think it is there in his boots. I think the audacity to take that first time coming out of the sky one-on-one with the keeper is almost as much like I love that as much as if he fucking brings it down and just dribbles past the keeper and slots it. But Suarez his first year would have attempted that volley out of the sky, yet he might have kicked it and the thing might have went into the side out for a throw-in, and the same assholes would have said that he was an absolute flop and never going to make it in England because he didn't speak the language. They didn't understand him yet. He hadn't been embraced and kind of engraced into the club culture. And I just think it's time with this kid because the effort is there. I forget what Kazi said. He was like a horse running around a mall. And it is kind of like that. Like if you were like walking through a mall and a freaking wild stallion just started running, bouncing off the elevator and going up the wrong way up the escalator and like knocking little girls down in like dressing rooms and shit. That's kind of what Darwin is like on the pitch. But good things happen. I mean, he made that third goal happen out of sheer determination and desire. And I think he's been proven to be statistically the fastest person in the Premier League so far this year, which I don't think anyone thought when he showed up. So he's got all these skills. And I think mentally, the fact that he's still smiling and taking shots and doesn't look like he wants to hide, and looks pissed when he gets subbed off because he knows a goal's coming and like a big moment's coming. I think it's great. And he just keeps getting assists. So I think the goals come and he's going to be a star. And I think he's fun to watch. So, I'm one of those people who it's all roses right now for me. Me
I
and
mean, that's the
Darwin.
thing I think we're seeing more and more from him is the fact that he is creating. I mean, so his runs, his full speed runs, I mean, that's not, and that's why I was kind of like, excited with the Gakpo prospect because that's a lot of speed running at a defense. And so even if they do not get the ball, it's a lot to worry about for a defender. And I think he's doing that efforts runs. Bickler, sometimes he's off, probably got to wash the line better and stuff. But how concerned are you with the finishing or the finishing?
I'm not at all concerned about it for all the reasons that Gally touched on. I mean, he does remind me a lot of Suarez, like his first season. Like, I mean, they're very different players, but the fact is they were both very, very technically raw goal scorers who carried the burden for every team they've ever been on and had to learn how to play in the Premier League. And I think, there's a moment in that, I can't remember if it was first or second half. There's a moment where he breaks in a 1v1 with the keeper. And like Nunez 2 months ago would have taken and just smashed it from a very low percentage angle. And instead he looks far post and one of their defenders gets a flick on it. If that defender doesn't get a flick on it, that's a goal because he saw the far post runner. The fact that he's even picking his head up in that spot tells me that he's developing as a player inside this system and in this team. And as just an actual raw player, I mean, I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. I think he's going to be a colossus. And the horse analogy is great because he's so long-legged. He does literally gallop, and it's some of the stuff he does is breathtaking. I mean, you put Gakpo in the midst, and now you got multiple bodies up front over 6 foot that are going to cause a different sort of problem too when it comes to corners and balls over the top anyway. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
So let me ask you this then, Gally. I mean, we were talking about earlier, and we said, like Gakpo's arrival kind of like pushes Jota into the middle too. And obviously you have Bobby there, and we talked. There was talk that we're trying to sign him to an extension. I don't know if that will change now that we signed Gakpo and stuff like that. But down the road, do you see him on the wing? I'm talking in terms of Nunez, or do you see him in the middle?
I see him in the middle eventually, but I don't think that has to happen. I think if he plays out wide or we play in a system with 2 up top. I mean, I think at times it looks like we've been playing. I mean, at times today it was basically 2 up top with him and Mo. And I thought that looked like it suits him the best, where he's playing on the left of a front 2. And we keep saying we want Mo more centrally so he can score goals like he has been. And to me, I think our best formation is the 2 of them operating kind of in a 2-man strike force with a player behind them, whether that be Bobby, whether that be Gakpo, maybe Paul's right, and eventually it's Fabio as well. But I could see it being Gakpo, Gakpo behind Mo and Nunez with Diaz out on the left. And then you have an impact striker like Jota to come off your bench and actually score you goals, and an impact player like Bobby. I could see that as a way to maximize using the 4 of them and all the talent on the pitch. Now, you probably need that to be like Fab and Bellingham in the midfield and not Hendo and Thiago, right? If you're going to put that many attackers on the pitch. But could you imagine those 4 put in Bellingham's skill set and those 2 fullbacks bombing forward? Like, could you actually imagine what that's like with Konate and Virgil in the middle? I mean, that's an 11 that we go out feeling like, we should win everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. There's like a lot of firepower to defend there, and now you have guys behind them if you're able to get Bellingham or.
But I only added 1 more person to actually make that 11.
Huge, and that's why I think it's worth every penny. Like when we were talking about it earlier, like 150, I think that's worth every penny because that guy fills in like everything you need in that situation, especially with a lineup like that. So Saito was saying earlier, game against Leicester City is always a very tough game. Gally said the Hendo and Fabinho and Matip needs to rest. So we're assuming Konate should be good to go, right? Who do you put in this midfield if it's up to you right now, Bickler, for this Leicester City game?
Oh, God.
That's not an option.
Fabinho. I'll probably start with Hendo. And I mean, I guess I'll stick with my original comment. Hendo, Harvey, Fab for this, and then bring Thiago off the bench.
How about you, Gally?
Yeah, that's probably where I would go as well. I don't think that I don't think you start the kid, and that would really be your only option, right? You start the kid for Fab and give him a rest. But I think Fab played well. You have to build off that. So second half for me was probably the best half of football that Fab's had consistently in a while, where he looked like himself. So I think you start Fab, Elliott, and Henderson. I will say it's intriguing your shout about Keita. I just can't imagine Klopp handing Keita a start at this point. If he did, I would be honestly more floored than I was seeing Ox out there in both the League Cup and this match. No, I mean, really, it would make me even more surprised, because I was kind of with Paul. I thought there'd be excuses to why he wasn't fit until he was at another club. And now it looks like if they can't move him for a fee, they're just going to utilize him the rest of the way, which they should. But, I won't be shocked at all if they get a fee for him before the end of the window. But we'll have to see, because, the window hasn't even opened yet and we're already signing players. Who is this club that we support?
Yeah, right. FSG. So I mean, here's the thing. It's I was thinking of the same midfield, and the reason I said Keita, but I think I understand Paul's point too. It's kind of like handing a start is pretty tricky when we're only trusting him with like 20 minutes or so. But I can see maybe being the first one off the bench for like Hendo or Elliott and stuff like that. I just like it's kind of pressing against a team like Leicester, who struggles to build from the back but insists on doing it. So that's like the good way to kind of like go at that team. But let's take a score prediction first. And then I want to ask you guys about another calendar prediction. But Gally, let's start with you on this one. Friday's game. When we come back here on Monday, this is the part A of this question. What is the score going to be? Are we going to be able to get the 3 points out of that?
Yep, 3-0. We actually keep a clean sheet. Build on the offense.
Damn, that's like kind of confidence I like, man. And Mr. Pessimist over here. Here we go. Bickler. Spoil the mood, baby. Spoil the mood.
3-1. They're going to have to prove it to me that they can keep a clean sheet.
Fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'll go with 3-1 too. I can see them hurting us on the counter in one of these where I know this is a habit. Alan says 4-0. I'll go with that too. But I realize it's a habit for defenders. Been there, done that, where you raise your hand for the off, right? But in this day and age, you would think after seasons of playing with VAR, why do players still keep doing this, Bickler? Because it's going to happen if it happens. I know it's a habit and it's like a reflex. Been there, done that. I've done it a ton of times. And you're trying to kind of like buy the ref, like your confidence makes the ref is like, man, he looks way too confident and raise the flag. But that's gone now, because we did it a couple of times this game where it was like, put your hand down and freaking get back into position.
It's going to get to the point where you can tell the age of a player by whether they do that or not, kind of like cursive handwriting. Like if I see somebody writing in cursive, I know that they're like, at least 25 years old. They don't teach that shit in school anymore. It's going to – it is weird to see people do that, because you're like, bro, you don't have to do that anymore. It's all like
I think you saw the memo. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got like that's not how any of this works. Like that thing is over now, kind of a deal. But so Gally, you were talking about earlier that there was no way I don't even know if I asked the question about a signing or anything like that, knowing it's not January yet, last Monday, but it will be January 2nd. Next time we're on the Monday podcast. Will we have even more news? Will we be talking about another player like we did with Gakpo today?
I don't know that we'll be talking about a done deal signing, but I have a feeling that we will have a strong indication to what midfielder will be coming in, because I think reinforcements are coming in early in January, not late in the window. I think they knew who their targets were. They're out there working it, and I'm hoping that it'll be one of the players that we really need, and someone that can come right in and go in quickly. So hopefully it's news of a pending deal, but I'm not sure we'll have another signing by Monday night at 8.
Since you said that, by the way, let me ask you this for like the Gakpo signing, because you were like mentioning that, like the timing of it, the fact that we signed them early, is that because we don't have time to dick around? We need these reinforcements right away, or was that before United gets them, you think?
I think it has a little bit to do with both. I think it is because United was pushing for it to get there. If they would have just gotten off their ass and made an actual official bid, it probably would have been over. I think Liverpool swooped in, got it done. But I also think that he has already left the Netherlands club. So he's in England ready to do medicals. So, he could start practicing literally within a day or two, and then he can't be registered until the 1st. But once he signs the contract, he can actually start to like get acclimated with the club, do all of his medicals, find a place to live. So I think this is all signs that they feel like they think they can bet him in pretty quickly to at least be an impact sub. I think they need him. I mean, we're going to have games, at a rapid pace.
Oxstad at wing. So
like... I didn't want to keep mentioning it, because I feel like at this point we're just piling on, because he doesn't honestly look. Kazi made a comment about him being mentally checked out earlier in the comments. He actually looks like a guy who is like semi like depressed and or wandering through life. Like he looks like a guy going through a midlife crisis, or a guy who's just about to have his about a guy about to have his first kid, and he doesn't understand what life
weird when
is
you guys
really
talk about
to
me when I'm in a room.
He can't hear you. How about you, Bickler? Same question to you. We come back next Monday. Will we be talking about a new guy that's imminent, has signs, freaking starting?
I can't imagine. I think we'll hear some rumblings. I don't think we'll have anything concrete next week.
Never say never. I do think this developed way too fast today.
Yeah, maybe we will, but I do think that there's going to be some business done this January outside of just this one. I just don't know it'll happen that fast or not.
Sounds good to me, and then we'll practice saying names. I think it's Amrabat originally, but I'll convert it to English for Amrabat for you guys, and we'll just go on that way. And it's Turkey for those of you taking notes. We'll work on this stuff during the week. So next
Turkey.
So yeah,
Turkey.
Damn.
Turkey.
Yeah, for all we say, he's a quick learner. I'll give him that. He's a quick learner. Well, make sure you guys grab your globes, get some studying done, get some name pronunciation done, and next Monday we will be back. Thanks to all joining. Give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you follow us on YouTube as well with the morning shows, and we're going to be getting back in action with the Premier League show as well. So thanks a lot, everybody. See you guys next Monday. Have a great